Yogyakarta Youth Declaration. Yogyakarta Youth Declaration. We, the youth representatives from 33 countries across the world, gathered at the International Youth Conference on 21st to 24th February 2011 in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, recalling the UN Resolution 64/134 that reaffirms youth's potential role and contribution in all aspects of life in the community, recalling the internationally agreed development goals, including the Millennium Development Goals or MDGs, and the importance to achieve those goals, recalling the UN Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, recalling also Article 8 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change or UNFCCC, recalling further the outcomes of COP6 of the UNFCCC in Cancun, Mexico, and COP10 of the CBD in Nagoya, Japan, recalling the Kyoto Framework for Action on Disaster Risk Reduction, recognizing that the environmental degradation is growing at an alarming rate and poses a threat to the well-being of humankind, recognizing that climate change constitutes a global problem that calls for the widest possible cooperation by all nations in accordance with the principles of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, noting that the human activities are one of the underlying causes for environmental problems, including climate change, acknowledging that the economic and financial crisis, as well as environmental problems, such as energy and food crisis and climate change, have impeded the poverty alleviation and the progress of the achievement of the internationally agreed development goals, including the MDGs. Noting the youth has significant roles in facing the impacts of climate change through partnerships with relevant stakeholders.
Item 1. Managing our environment. Learn from the past, act for the future. The youth invites government to promote sustainable forest management to preserve forest resources by taking into account the role of forest for the well-being of humankind. Encourage the private sector industry to develop more environmentally friendly products and practices. Increase the public awareness of environmental issues through the media, education curriculum, and events, as well as supporting youth-initiated programs. Promote environmental entrepreneurship by providing support to small and medium enterprises. Develop sustainable energy sources and promote the use of renewable energy such as solar energy, geothermal, wind energy, and etc. Enhance international cooperation for addressing environmental issues. Develop policies to control the growth of population. Establish more conservation areas and wildlife protection centers, as well as enhance the existing ones.
Sao mình dịch các cái ca như anh chẳng
Invest for the environmental sound practices such as reducing emissions of chemicals,
nhưng bên trong ổn nó cả nó crom nhôm mình
waste, as well as greenhouse gases. Ensure that the product life cycle is environmentally sustainable. Encourage the development of energy-saving products. Promote sustainable lifestyle of workers by motivating them to reduce electricity using public transportation, etc. The youth invites you to be actively involved in the deliberations of environmental issues at the local, national, regional, and international level. Actively promote the knowledge sharing on the global environmental issues to communities taking advance on an advancement of information and communication technologies, including the use of social networks. Implement and promote sustainable lifestyle, such as encouraging recycling, sustainable consumption patterns, etc.
Item 2. Youth Initiatives on Environmental Conservation. The youth proposes the following recommendation for the government. to actively promote climate change issues through incorporating climate change education into both the formal and informal education systems, and ensuring the availability and accessibility of related information to the public. To support in-depth research on renewable energy alternatives conducted by the youth. To support networking, knowledge sharing, and continued communication among its youth, including through social networking groups. To encourage youth participation and involvement in decision-making process on environmental issues. Youth proposes the following recommendations for civil society. To organize and support environmental events to increase the public awareness on environmental issues. To educate and motivate people to actively engage in environmental activities and sustainable lifestyles. To maintain the check and balances function to ensure the government and the private sector do support environmentally friendly initiatives. The youth proposes the following recommendation to the youth. To strengthen the youth participation in the protection, preservation, and improvement of the environment. Item 3, Roku conservation. Proposals for government and intergovernmental organizations. 1. To encourage the development of conservation policies that takes into account the needs of the poor and marginalized communities. 2. To strengthen the cooperation between the governments and other international actors to mitigate and adapt to climate change and create a legal framework to do so with regard to the indigenous people and local communities' wisdom. Number 3. To encourage the development of sustainable agriculture and fisheries. Number 4. Promote the exchange of knowledge and experience on mitigation and adaptation to climate change by establishing, improving existing institutional networks, educational institutions, civil society organizations, media, private sector, governmental agencies, and religious institutions. Number 5. To establish incentive-based taxes to companies, increasing scales for polluters and rewarding emissions reduction programs in order to fund environmental and social initiatives aimed to reduce the externalities faced by the affected and vulnerable communities. Number 6. To support community-based conservation projects of natural resources and local development of green technology and green energy. Number 7. Provide alternative sources of income, livelihood, particularly the most vulnerable communities. Number 8. To invest in research on particular needs, the most vulnerable communities, to the effects of climate change in order to identify the best ways to address them. And number 9. Formulate regulations for the sustainable CSR. Proposals for the youth to engage in community projects aimed to reduce the vulnerability to climate change by researching, exchanging knowledge and experience, involving media in disseminating success and inspiring stories, organizing campaigns, and actively participating in events. 2. To facilitate the analysis at the community level on vulnerability and the possible ways to mitigate it. Proposals to the vulnerable people. Participate in government and NGOs activities related to mitigating and adapting to climate change. Thank you.
We will continue by the Venetian Street handover, and I would like to invite Mr.